Oh, we are so back. I'm Jeff Lamar alongside the trendsetter Brian Berger. We are the Jersey Wrecking Crew. We got another episode of HSP for you on the Give a Shot Network. Make sure you like and subscribe here on the YouTube, and make sure you download all the episodes, and make sure you catch us as well on all podcast platforms. So if you can't watch us, listen to us, but make sure you subscribe here on the YouTube on the Give Us a Shot Network. Trendsetter, so much to discuss. Got Money in the Bank this week. Worlds collide. It's another great weekend of wrestling. Monday Night Raw, SmackDown, NXT, AEW, all that stuff, in TNA as well. But what do we talk about as we open up the show? Something shocking over the weekend, something that we thought we'd never see, someone that we thought had a job for life, trendsetter, and that is finding out the R-Truth has been released by the WWE. And I want to get to that word released. We're going to talk a lot about that because that word can be a little bit misconstruing as far as what exactly it means. But Chancellor, how you doing? And when you saw the news over the weekend, and I thought I told you about it, and then we had kind of a double take because this is a guy who we thought had a job with WWE forever, and we find out he was released or his contract will not be renewed. And just your quick take on that and what you thought the second you saw that on social media this weekend.
Well, good to see you again, Jeff. It's been a while, man, since we've done one of these. Looking forward to get right back into it. But I think the most important thing is the context of what's being said right now, because everyone says release. Even R-Truth said that to a certain extent in the message he put on X. It's more that his contract hasn't been renewed, and that's the thing. And
So it is, yeah.
yeah, and that's the reality. It just hasn't been renewed. He hasn't been fired. They've just chose to part ways and say, listen, we're not going to continue using your services anymore. That's the reality of it. And so many people are so upset and offended and shocked. And listen, I'd be the first one to tell you, Jeff, that I was a little surprised when it happened because I was similar to you. Thought, man, R-Truth, he's got a job for life right now because everybody loves him. And I'm pretty sure everyone does love him in the back, but this is a new era. And that's kind of sounds like a cop out to a certain degree, but it is a new era where TKO and things are being managed. I'm sure there are going to be a lot of people saying, "Oh, how can you, do that? And look how much you're charging for tickets." That has nothing to do with it. Every business has a scenario where they have to just cut corners or just say, "Listen, we don't have enough room on the roster to keep X amount of people on." And R-Truth just so happened to be one of those people. But again, it goes to the point where everyone's offended by it. When I looked back and got over the initial shock, my first thing that I thought of, Jeff, and I told you this when it happened, I said, man, what a run. It was an amazing run by R-Truth in terms of how long he stayed within the company, how much he kept himself relevant to a certain degree, and all the things that he did, regardless of what it was just so entertaining that you couldn't help but think what we thought before. This guy's got a job for life. He's never going to be let go. He'll leave WWE when he decides to leave. And in this scenario, WWE decides not to renew it. So
let's talk
initial
about
shock.
let's talk about what exactly was said. So he posted on Twitter. Basically, I'm starting to inform you all. I just got released from WWE. I want to thank WWE for the ride, but mostly I want to thank each and every one of you who was along for the ride. Thank you for all the love, support, and appreciate you have given me, and appreciate what you've given me over the years. Thank you, with a thank you sign. And basically, again, we know R-Truth has this way of him being happy-go-lucky, and we kind of think maybe it's like an angle or something like that because they're always working us. We always think, right? They're always working us. But the way the context says, I've been released, and the first thing is anger because when you think of releases, you think of it like, oh, okay, he had a contract and WWE chose not to, renew it. TKO chose to cut costs, and we're like, okay, he's making too much money. He's a part timer. So being unfair, we were like, okay, that's fine. But release is a lot different than not to be extended. So it's not that he was a casualty, as we're going to say in sports, right? He was just not going to be renewed, the contract. So whether it's the money that he was getting for the dates he was working, or whether it's he would not take a pay cut, we don't know that. We might get into that in the future. But right now, I get it, the anger when you see released, and of course, when everyone gets releases, no one wants to see anybody lose their job. But when we see that, we write the list, we put it on Instagram, we put it on our social media, and we say, hey, you could have kept this person. Oh, this person's not been unfairly, not used, and so on and so on. But with R-Truth, it's just a matter of that, hey, listen, he's had a tremendous run, and it's just the contract's not been renewed. Now, you can make the case that this is a locker room guy. Everybody loves him, and he lifts up morale. And that's what you need sometimes. Locker room leaders they've been through everything in this company. You've seen everything. He's been part of the Attitude Era. The man doesn't age, so obviously he has a lot of advice. And just to be around somebody like that, I don't know if anybody that doesn't like R-Truth. But when you use the word release, obviously there's going to be a lot of anger. And then you see people talking about it, and they'll even do podcasts about it. Be like, how could you release? But then when the news comes out that it's not extended, they're not going to renew the contract, you're like, okay. But Trendsetter, you were saying this is a new era. This is TKO. This is not a family-run business like Vince McMahon did. And to see sometimes I would say just that hate and that anger, that fake outrage that you see about stuff like this. These are the same people that didn't want to see him on Saturday Night's Main Event against John Cena. This is a guy who, before he was let go, had a run with John Cena. One of his final matches was against John Cena at Saturday Night's Main Event. But the very same people, to me, this is what bothers me, Chancellor. The very same people that are outraged about him being let go are the same people who were complaining about, oh, wait a minute, what's he doing against Saturday Night's Main Event? Oh, this is a horrible run for John Cena. He's fighting R-Truth. That's, I think, what I've read so far this last few days that really gets to me.
I think it gets to everyone, really. I mean, to me, it annoyed me for the fact that, to your point, everyone would complain about the position R-Truth would be in, saying that, oh, he should be used, in an important manner. They should really be using him right. They're using him incorrectly. He's more of a side piece where he's more just for entertainment purposes and kind of made to be like a joke. That's what I've heard from some people say. And then he's in a scenario in a huge spot with John Cena, and people are like, oh, you're going to waste a John Cena match on R-Truth? Come on, are you kidding me? And the match was about almost like maybe less than a minute and a half, really. And
About
then
4
people
minutes,
were
yeah.
upset by it. And I'm like, okay, well, this is what you wanted. And then this initial shocker of him not being renewed, he goes out and says he's being released, or he got released. A little bit, I don't know. It depends who you want to trust, who you want to believe, right? But ultimately, both what makes me so confused in the whole scenario is that people have such an opinion on something when they don't know the details. Neither you and I know the details either, but they're so quick to react to something where one person can interpret it one way, the person who's let go or quote unquote released, and the company standpoint saying, oh, we just chose not to extend your contract anymore and not to renew it. Depends on who you want to believe here. But regardless of the fact, though, it is a shock, it is a surprise. But ultimately, we should be celebrating the fact, man, R-Truth, granted, he only won the United States title twice. I think he won the 24/7 title, I think,
A
35
million times, 5 million, 1 million, 2, give or take.
give or take there. There's my train right there. But man, what an amazing ride in terms of what he's done and things he's accomplished and the people he's interacted with within WWE. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind, not even knowing R-Truth or knowing the backstage locker room culture, but everyone there respects him. And you knew that from the outpour of reach that people, did on Instagram, TikTok, or did on X, where they just reached out and showed how much R-Truth meant to them in the locker room, Miz being one of them, obviously.
The Miz, and then Rhea Ripley, of course, and it's just Kevin Owens, another one too. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of locker room people, a lot of leaders that saw him as a leader and someone who was untouchable. So the first thing I'm going to say, well, first of many things, is that again, the word released. I get it when the wrestler feels like they've been released, thinking that they've been released from the company, where they don't say they've been extended. I guess it's just easier than say that I will not be extended, right? They're not going to renew my contract. You're going to say the word released. But then the way we use that term released is a trigger for the fans because they love these guys. They support these guys. They're fans of them. So we always go to the side of the wrestler, and we never think of the business aspect. We never think of TKO. We don't think of WWE. They're trying to cut costs and fit their bottom dollar. But the thing to me is also as well, Trendsetter, is that this is a locker room leader. This is somebody that, hey, listen, when you think about releasing, yeah, it's a casualty and you feel bad for the person, but this is somebody that you really have to think about. Does it really make sense to let go of this person when you're going through the books and you're looking through the roster and you're thinking like, man, is this a glue guy? And you might not think about it. You might not think about it. You might think, R-Truth and glue, right? You might not think about that, but it is. There's some locker room leaders, like a Natalia. She's somebody too who's like a locker room leader, a veteran that is good because you can offer the other boys and girls experience. So that's somebody that I think that if it was a family run and Vince McMahon, I don't think he ever loses a job. I think when you're with Vince, he has his people that you're gonna have a job for life. And if it was family run, then R-Truth would still be there. This is TKO. This is the bottom dollar. This is a corporation. They're gonna look at a guy, 53 years old, looks like has the body of a 26-year-old, right? But 53 years old, limited dates, and I'm sure somebody else can do his thing. And that's where here's the funny thing too: the same people that couldn't wait for Vince McMahon to sell the company are now saying, "Oh, TKO, go screw yourself. Oh, TKO, you're taking the fun. You're making WWE soulless. You're taking the soul out of the WWE." Now, listen, if you want to say that, you're more entitled to your opinion. But the thing is, you can't have a time where you want Vince to sell it and then he sells it. You're having a celebration and you think, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. And then all of a sudden you start seeing things like this. And I think the trendsetter started all during WrestleMania buildup. I think whatever goodwill WWE had, because they did. I mean, after WrestleMania 40, there was this vibe, there was this new feeling, there was this just like breath of fresh air because you had Cody as the champ, you had Triple H in the beginning of this new era, and you were sold on this. But then when The Rock interferes, when The Rock, starts showing that he wants to, put his 2 cents in, and then when you see TKO charging these enormous amount of prices for WrestleMania and driving the true fan away, that's when you start to diminish and you start lowering it. And I think WWE is on this, not a fast track downward, but on this thing where they're starting to lose that WWE fan that maybe last year you built up, and now this year it's like WrestleMania, it's the releases, it's the ticket prices, it's the storylines, it's who's being pushed, who's gone, and then you get somebody like R-Truth, which is a person that everybody loves, and people have his back, and this is on a lot of levels. Look, again, R-Truth has spoke on the wheel, right? But this is just the beginning of the goodwill that WWE built that's slowly but surely, in my opinion, diminishing.
It's the goodwill that they've established for so long under the old regime, right? Where people were just committed to it regardless and would say for so long that the old regime was, they're out of touch with what the fan wanted. And then there was a little rift in there in the scenario where that all changed. And there was a momentum of thinking, oh my goodness, finally we have a scenario where we as the fans can get what we want. And then this happens. But it's so interesting when you talk about the points you were just making in terms of, you're right. Vince was the owner. Would R-Truth still have a job? But yet they're the same people that couldn't wait for him to sell the company. So unfortunately, they can't have it both ways. And this is just a part of it where, yes, that fanfare, the generic, or not the generic, sorry, the casual fan enjoys watching the product because I think it's more intriguing and more set for the casual fan. The die-hardcore ones, the people that've been there all the time, they're being pushed out to a certain degree, not just by the ticket prices, but the mere fact that a lot of the people that have been staples within that company for so long are no longer going to be there. And this is the beginning of that process. But it also makes me look at it the same scenario too, when you looked at the merger of AAA, right? The partnership with TNA and all the possible people on the indie scene and various companies can be acquired and people are being moved up from NXT to the main roster. There's just not that many spots left in catering. Don't mean that to be a joke, that you can keep it. Unfortunately, you don't. Can you do it? Yes. Can you keep everyone you want on payroll? Does it make sense from a business standpoint? And that's what I have to look at it from. Easy for me to say that, right, from a business standpoint, but ultimately you have to look at it this way. Was he contributing? What's the future going forward with him? Can he take the spot of somebody else coming up and might use him? That's the possibility. So unfortunately, business sucks. I know it from first experience, Jeff, and you do too. You can be loyal to a company for so long and they just basically do away with you in the blink of an eye, and they're like, "Oh my god, I can't believe that happened. What's going on?" There is no loyalty in business, and that's just the harsh reality we face.
And especially now, because this is what a lot of people wanted. They thought Vince was out of touch, and they wanted uh, a new era, a new face, a new something new, and it was time for a change. Now, listen, I don't know if all these allegations towards Vince McMahon, whatever happens to it, we know that He's done a lot of wrong things, but if that hadn't come to light, would people be calling for Vince to buy it back? I know Jonathan Coachman said something where Vince would be interested in buying the company back, but I just don't see that because first of all, TKO, I mean, would they be willing to sell? And another thing too is like, you know, with all that stuff with Vince McMahon, like what, how would that look, right? But if he hadn't, though, what are you as a fan having second doubts of Vince selling it to TKO, or was it just time for a change?
I really felt it was just time for a change. I really did. For so many years, people would complain about it and say, "Oh my goodness, what's going on? It's the same old thing over and over again." And there was that breath of fresh air after it was done, and Triple H was kind of running things, and he had Nick Khan and this partnership with TKO. Everything was exciting, but now that we have a better idea of what the ultimate, not ultimate, but what the plan might be going forward, as we see the ticket prices increase, we see superstars getting released, we see acquisitions, partnerships that we've never seen before. There's some positives, but there are obviously going to be negatives there, and you can't deny it in terms of, nobody's going to like everything that's happening right now. What I love the most about this is the fact that, under the old regime, we would never see a partnership with TNA. We would never see acquiring a company like AAA in Mexico. We wouldn't see these overseas tours that we've seen, and we've been spoiled so much in terms of the fan reaction. Like, oh my God, every event feels like a main event. Now, that could be a detriment to the company too, because not every event could be a WrestleMania type feel. They can't knock it out of the park all the time. But in terms of this, like I said, we've talked about the ticket pricing, we've talked about the absurdness of some of these releases or some of these acquisitions. It's just part of the process, I feel. People want to say, oh, John the Coachman says that, Vince is interested in purchasing the company, or somebody like Mark Henry on Busted Open would say, there's no way R-Truth would be released if Vince was still running things. There's a reason why it was done. Could it be due to the legal allegations he's dealing with and still dealing with now at this point? Possibly the reason why he sold it faster and quicker to still be able to run and still do creative, but then was kicked out eventually because he no longer was majority shareholder and was told to, sell his stock shares. I don't know. We'll never know the answer to that. But I know right now, this is the scenario we're in. Coulda, woulda, shoulda. Vince, I don't think is coming back ever. And so this is kind of the new regime, and we're dealing with the bumps in the road of what this new regime and this new partnership with WWE and TKO is dealing with right now.
So on the business aspect, I'll never fault the company for trying to make money, but to try to squeeze as much in life of it, and how much money do you need? That's where I sometimes say, hey, listen, man, like the greediness and that stuff to me just kind of would leave a sour taste in my mouth. How much money do you need? But to me, when you think about UFC and you think about how, you talk about them, I think they're in a little bit of a lull. I think that they've kind of main evented their matches out. They've kind of squeezed the talent as much as they can. And now where you're trying to build card after card after card, that's kind of dwindled down. And I think to me right now, they see that WWE can make money and they're trying to make as much profit out of it. Again, I don't blame you for it. That's what you should do as a company. But when you're trying to do this craziness stuff, listen, I was not upset when they moved it out of New Orleans. You know why, Trendsetter? Because shit happens. And they promised New Orleans they'd have another WrestleMania. So it's not like they pulled out and were like, we're never coming back. Obviously, New Orleans is a huge draw for them. And when you look at the numbers and the numbers crunch, hey, listen, Vegas is the home of TKO. You're going to have a lot of WrestleManias there. And when you think about it, though, they hadn't had a WrestleMania there in 30 years. So they're going back there after 30 years. And so you have another one next year, too. I mean, yes, are we going to see more in Vegas? Of course, probably, because that's where they're from. That's their home. And I said that. I said that in the beginning that was going to be their home base. So they never did the T-Mobile Arena. Now they're probably going to do the T-Mobile Arena a lot. So I don't blame them for doing that. But that didn't bother me. But to me, it's, again, trying to squeeze out as much as they can when it comes to the ticket prices, and to me as well as the releases. But again, you have to, these people that they're getting from, yes, Mariah May is coming, or so what we heard from. She's going to come to the WWE. That women's division is loaded. But what can you do? Either you do a women's show, or you have to release the females that you feel are not going to progress, or that you see. That's why you had Shayna Baszler released and Dakota Kai. And as much as it hurts, that's what they got to do. Now, for Triple H, now a lot of people say that Triple H would never be someone that would want to release somebody like uh R-Truth, the fact that he has a say in it, and the fact that he was the person that kind of okayed it. What do you think about that? What do you think about Triple H's loyalty? Should it have been to R-Truth, or should it have been to TKO?
I find it so funny when people talk about loyalty, right? As opposed to,
There is none. I know that. I know that.
there's no loyalty, and that's the thing. So many people will butthurt about this, and it just drives me crazy. Like, why? What do they owe R-Truth? I love R-Truth. I think he's funny. Every single time he comes on the screen, I laugh because he's hilarious and he makes
He's
comedic
great
gold
at what he
no
does.
matter what
He's
he
great at what
does,
he does.
right? But how can I feel bad for a person who's employed for how many years
Yeah.
now is
Or
not being re-signed? It wasn't like he was just all of a sudden says, you know what, you're fired, don't come back, we don't want nothing to do with you. We're not continuing your contract. It's business. I don't understand what loyalty is. Loyalty is the fact that R-Truth owes everything he has to the WWE in the fact that they employed him for so many years that he was able to feed his family, provide for his family, hopefully he saved enough money and continue on, whether he wants to continue on with wrestling at another company or just wants to just call it a career. I don't understand this fact of, oh, well, Triple H needs to be loyal to what? What does he
Oh,
need to be loyal to?
and all of he's getting killed every time he tweets. He's getting killed. They're going after Triple H. Like he's taking the
I want the WWE universe just for the fans of the internet wrestling community. Okay, he doesn't fire him. Tell me what value he holds right now that I lose by letting him go. What
and
do I lose?
the only thing right now is this, which I think the timing though was kind of crazy. I'm pretty sure this was John Cena having respect for R-Truth and wanting a match with him and having a final run with R-Truth. That's why he had Saturday Night's Main Event. So the timing to me is weird because he's just coming off that. His T-shirt is the number one selling shirt. So here's where I question this: they're not one to leave. Again, this is a company that squeezes money out of everywhere, right? They'll to the last drop, and yet they're pulling the number one T-shirt. I just think the timing, just to me, is kind of weird. I think it's just bad timing. But Triple H is taking he is being the face of this release. Of this contract not being renewed. And again, I'm falling into the trap of calling it a release because it's not really a release, and it comes down to the verbiage. Because if it's my contract's not extended, oh, it kind of eases the blow. Yeah, it's not fair, but you got to look back though. He had a tremendous career, amazing lengthy career that you wish for. Right now, wrestlers would trade in a second, having 20 years and then calling it a day, and the WWE pulls the plug. Sometimes change is necessary, but I would say that the timing was just kind of weird, Translator, because you talked about what did they owe him or what was he contributing. Well, the last month or so, he was contributing a lot.
Listen, you asked me the question like, when
Yeah.
is the proper time, Jeff? Jeff, there is never the
No,
proper
no.
time to let somebody go. If he had done this 5 months ago, somebody would be in uproar. How could you do it? You never gave him
No.
an opportunity. You let him go. There's no pleasing anybody because, again, the same people that are like, he has the hottest selling T-shirt right now. He just was in a program with John Cena. Wow, what a way to go out in terms of working with the number one top guy, or people call him the greatest of all time. Oh my goodness, how terrible is that, right? Or 5 or 6 months ago when he was doing absolutely nothing, and these same individuals who complain that, oh my God, you're not using R-Truth. He's just a comedic guy. Have him wrestle in the ring. Give him a program. Do something serious. They gave you what you wanted, and then they said no more. I don't know when people ask the question or you ask the question, like, what's the perfect time or the timing's off? Then I ask, not you, Jeff, but I ask in general, when's the perfect time then to let someone go? I'll give you the answer, Jeff. There is no perfect time, and that is the answer.
There is no perfect time, and that's why these when they're shocking when it happens. And this was obviously one that a lot of people
Let
felt
me
the
ask you
most.
this, Jeff. You said it was shocking, right? But when you got off the initial shock like I did you understand the move? Or you didn't get the move?
No, I listen, man. This is what I thought of. Okay, I did a double take, but like we said, this is a guy who thought had a job for life. I thought he was a good backstage guy, and I just someone that I thought would be there forever. But then it sucks. I never want to see anybody get not not be employed. But then you understand. You think, wow, what a run, man. 20 years, guy looks great. Uh, contributed a lot. WWE Hall of Famer. Obviously, he'll come back down the road. And I'm like, this is not somebody who's going to be, in trouble outside of the company. He's going to do whatever he wants to, basically.
It'll be fine.
He'll be fine. And the outrage to me is like, yeah, you can be disappointed, but R-Truth doesn't pay your bills. R-Truth doesn't know, you know what I mean? Like, I get the fact that you feel for somebody that you see on TV, but he's gonna be fine. And that's, to me, one of the other things that I thought of. And of course, the wrestlers, they're friends with him. They know this guy personally. They don't want to see somebody lose their job as well. But at the end of the day, once you see past that, you got to understand it's a business. And in his case, it was he couldn't have been treated any better. So this to me is just, listen, we're not going to renew it, and it's time that we grow apart. And 20 plus years, dude, it's not like it was like 20 minutes. He, unless if he saved his money and he did all that, he's set for life. And at 53, I mean, that
Doesn't look
is
it.
his run.
He doesn't look it.
Doesn't look it.
And I'll finish by saying this too, Jeff, is the fact that everyone has the right to feel what they feel in terms of the reaction. Shocked, disappointed, angry, understanding, whatever the case might be, right? R-Truth went out and stated what he wanted to say, and ultimately in the end, the gist of what he wrote on X was the fact that he was thankful and thanked everyone, thanked the WWE and thanked the fans for all their support, right? And I'll use as an example. We have an individual like Miz, for example, who puts out a heartfelt message of how much R-Truth means to him in terms of the awesome truth when they were a tag team together, which I thought was one of the best tag teams or best storylines Miz had been in a long time, being a tag team champion with R-Truth. It was funny, and it was definitely a great moment for both guys. Then he disassociates himself with WWE. He unfollows WWE now. He kind of takes things off his profile. And listen, that's the reaction you want to give. Fine. But I understand too that everyone wants to point the finger at Triple H. I'm not here defending Triple H either, but it's easy to point the finger and say, oh, this is the bad guy. How could you do that? When you put yourself in that situation and you have to make that move and it's a business move, nobody's going to like the decision you make. And that's the reality of it. So there's never a perfect time. You can't keep everyone either. That's not fair. That's not business in the sense that, whether it's sports or just business in general, we see in the everyday world, you cannot keep everyone every single time. As you expand, people have to be let go. You have to move on in different directions. You may not agree with it, but that's just the way it is. So that's all I have to say left about R-Truth.
And well said too. So I mean, for the for this outrage, more power to you. If you want to feel that way, I get it. The guy's a great dude, from what everyone says. Tremendous guy, and obviously a leader. But at the end of the day, when you look at it rationally, yes, the man, throw him his flowers, but TKO is a business, and you might not like the way you run it, but you didn't like the old way, and now you wanted this way. The majority wanted this way, and if you say no, then I'm a point the finger at you and say no, you wanted the change. Now whether you would go back to the old regime, probably not, but is it that bad yet? I think WWE has a issue where TKO in their I would say agreed that they find a way to kind of step back a little bit and let things flow, because they're just trying to squeeze the bottom dollar out of everything, and that's going to be a detriment to them. The only thing else I'm going to say is that you talked about the Miz and what he did. And I know Gunther, any wrestling tweets he had posted have been pulled back on his X, and the Miz unfollowed WWE, and he's got a contract coming up too, where I'm not sure if there's any negotiations, but his contract is up too. And when you get to the older superstars now, transfer, now there is the issue where you talked about an influx of talent in NXT and Evolve and LFG, and ABCDF. You know, all these places now that there's an influx of talent, and you were talking about people now. Even now, AEW talent are coming up here, and they're taking spots. As you get older now, for the wrestlers, and I didn't want to lump AJ Styles into this, but when you talk about guys like AJ, whose contract is up, and the Nakamura, so I'm pretty sure his contract is up, and guys like the Miz, that's another one person that you think is gonna be there forever. But you have to start thinking now, as these guys get older, TKO views them more as just pieces that can be moved away to bring up the. They think of this as a factory. They think of this, let's get the old pieces out and let's bring in these new people. Because the second I saw Braun Breaker tonight on Raw, I'm like thinking, well, this guy never has to worry about losing his job. He's going to be there another 20 years. So it's like it's now becoming TKO is looking as a sport, because now out with the old and then bringing in the new, which it's like a factory now. That's what NXT is. They're bringing up the new, and you can take a look at the Stephanie Vicares now, the Julias that are now taking over, the Jordan Graces. And I told you, Trendsetter, I don't even think you need the original four horsewomen. If Bayley, Becky, and Charlotte left to say they went to AEW, it'd be a hit because it'd be names, but there's always people that are going to come and take a spot. And it's just the circle of life, I guess, in pro wrestling, right?
Listen, there's no question, without a shadow of a doubt, Jeff, that everyone is replaceable. That's just the reality of the situation. What you're stating is nothing new, because it's nothing new in the extent that maybe in the past, under the old regime, those figures that were staples were there for an extremely long time, that overstayed their welcome. That maybe their fastball wasn't as fast as it used to be, but you were living off nostalgia to pay the bills. But like anything in any company, in the scenario too, you want to compare it to a sports team, right? You reach a certain point where you can be dedicated, you can play for a certain team for a long period of time, and then your time comes way before you expect it to happen. You mentioned guys like AJ, you mentioned guys like Shinsuke Nakamura. Hell, let's throw the one guy nobody talks about either, CM Punk. He's not a springtime chicken anymore either. And there will be a certain point, and here's the difference between a guy like CM Punk or Seth Rollins or Roman Reigns, even a Cody maybe to an extent. They have more control of when they choose their time is done. As suppose maybe an AJ that you'd say, well, how? Look at AJ, look what he's done. But still, what has he done since he's come back from injury? What storylines is he in right now? Nothing really. To the point where you're thinking, could they just sit on his contract and let him go? It's a possibility. And as much as people hate to admit that, that's just the truth of what's going on here. Eventually, the people or the staples move on. You mentioned a perfect example, the four horsewomen. Oh, my God, the Sasha Banks, the Baileys, the Charlottes, the Becky Lynches. Now they're a thing of the past. Tiffany Stratton said it amazingly on SmackDown once. She was like, you guys, including Alexa Bliss too, are vintage. It's true. The days where I used to, gaga over Trish Stratus and Lita, that's ancient history now. It all moves on. It's the circle of life, whatever you want to call it. It's the truth. So it's nothing new what you're describing, Jeff.
No pun intended.
I think it's just
no pun intended.
No pun intended, right? Truth. As Ric Flair would say. It's just the way the business is. It's a circle. It continually goes. And guys like John Cena, who people hated for years, burying guys. Oh, my goodness, he never lets anybody win. He does the Super Cena and makes their moves look bad. Now he's finally setting his date, and people don't want him to go. You got to be kidding me. People are like, oh, he's got a heel turn now. He's got 2 or 3 more years left in him. Really? The same guy that people couldn't wait to get out the door, now people want him to stay for another 2 or 3 years because now his heel turn can make more money? It's a business, Jeff. Everyone's replaceable. Everyone will eventually go. But guys like CM Punk, who his body might say no before the WWE does, because that's just the way it is right now. He's not a springtime chicken. He's really, I saw him in the ring on Raw. He is not moving very well at all. He's showing his age. He's not the same guy he once was before, but he can talk on the mic, and that continues his ability to connect with the audience. So it's nothing new that you're talking about right now. It's going to happen to every single person, and they'll just be replaced with somebody else. the next person will take their spot.
Exactly. I mean, and especially when you've become a corporation where it's not the family biz anymore, and there's not that sentiment, there's not that emotional attachment, and they see you as just a number. A number is sometimes a fat number because it's your paycheck, and that's what we've learned from the releases of, again, and I fall into the trap, not the releases of the non-extending of R-Truth and Carlito. The same thing falls into that category. Yes, his timing is perfect. His comedy is great. I loved him in the Judgment Day, but when you put how many times he's actually wrestling, how many times he's actually in the ring, and you look at what they probably paid him before that, did it make sense to keep him? And I see the business decision and I see where the outrage is, but you have to sometimes look at it straight up the middle, be objective and not go off on emotion. Yes, these guys are somebody to root for, but they're going to be okay. They're going to be, they're going to find it because wrestling is everywhere. And if they promote themselves right and they do it right, they're going to get over. And most likely these two guys will eventually be back in some way. So while you're disappointed that guys like R-Truth and Carlito were released, it's not in a month from now, in 2 months from now, the same thing is going to happen. We're going to be here sitting talking about the other guys that were released. But you know what happens when you expand? You also have to, again, unfortunately, you have to let go of stuff that you already have in order to expand. And as WWE is rapidly expanding with AAA, with TNA, with NXT, and like I said, all the letters in the alphabet, while they're expanding, have to expect that they're going to let some of their stars go. And it's the circle of life, not only in the business aspect. The trendsetter can tell you right now from experience. I can tell you from experience. It's not fun to be let go. It's not. But you know what? You get over it and you try to better yourself. And that's what they're going to do. And that's what we expect them to do. And we'll see them again. It's a circle of life in pro wrestling, but not just in pro wrestling, but in business. And that's what this is. This is a business. All right, trendsetter. Crazy stuff. Never thought R-Truth would be gone from WWE. You never thought that, but it does happen. Again, we wish them well and we thank them for everything they did, and we wish them nothing but the best. And we'll see them eventually down the road soon back in WWE. And I believe with the outrage, though, transfer that we've heard, I'm pretty sure WWE is they're going to make it right in some way and somehow. And we'll see what happens during this week and what happens with R-Truth, because on Raw, they were yelling for his name. You had the signs if you resign R-Truth or a riot. So there is that fan outrage, but will WWE do something about it? We're going to find out this week or down the road.
Yeah, we definitely will. And listen, that's just a great testament to R-Truth in terms of the kind of performer, the kind of person, the human being he was. Not only did he receive such a affectionate and loving reaction from his fellow colleagues, his fellow performers, but the audience showed their appreciation as well, because they probably thought he'll always be there. There'll never be another R-Truth, which I firmly believe there'll never be somebody like R-Truth Killings ever, which is a good thing. It's a positive. It's a compliment. But for them to chant, "We want truth," as nice as that was, Jeff, and I'm sure he appreciates it. And from an internal standpoint, I'm like, you know what? I appreciate that too. You know, because I'm appreciative of R-Truth, and I am thankful for everything he did in terms of entertaining me. God, so many spots real quick. It was the Royal Rumble. He brought the ladder in for the Royal Rumble, and
Oh, it enters
my bad thing. That was just
when he enters the Women's Royal Rumble match by act, I mean, all
that
that
is amazing,
stuff.
amazing,
Brock
amazing
Lesnar,
comedy.
all the people he made, break, I mean, the Judgment Day stuff, even this whole John Cena thing where he was a little bit serious too. I mean,
Yeah.
R-Truth is a true legend, and so happy that, that he shared his talents with us. But again, we just wish R-Truth, Carlito, and everyone else that was released in the past releases that we didn't talk about, just the very best. And they're going to be all right, and we wish them well. All right, Trent, so you're watching HSP Podcast reacting to the release. Well, again, I fell again to WWE not extending R-Truth. So we talked about that.
Depends on who you want to believe here. Depends on
Whatever you want to believe. Make sure, as Carlito as well. So they were not extended. Their contracts will not be extended past the point of expiration. So you're listening and watching to the High Spot Podcast, HSP, on the Give Us a Shot Network. Make sure you give us a like and subscribe and hit that notification bell to not miss any episodes of HSP. And if you can't watch us, listen to us on all podcast platforms. Follow us on all social media. at High Spot Podcast. Thank you for 36K on Instagram. Make sure you follow us there as well. Trendsetter closes out as I go catch my train, and we have more stuff for you guys this week. We will talk about Money in the Bank and so many other stuff for you guys. We will see you later. Trendsetter, close it out.
Well, I was about to say, if you can't watch us or listen to us, then you don't have your priority straight, guys. Let's be honest here, honestly. As we catch our train to end the show. Guys, thank you so much for catching this episode of the High Spot Podcast. For my tag team partner, Jeff Martin, I'm the trendsetter, Brian Brega. It's been too long, but you know what? We pick up right where we left off. It never ends, guys. This is the, as they say, it's a labor of love. It's what it is. We love pro wrestling. We love talking about it with you guys, too. And remember, we do this for one reason and one reason only. We do this for you, the
Crew.